owed by the borrower on the loan for 1 year, if the borrower has the opportunity to opt out of the payment. 2. Additional payments to the extent that amounts made available by subsection A remain after making the payments under paragraph 1. The Secretary shall make additional loan payments on a covered loan. C. Terms and conditions. 1. Waiver. The Secretary shall waive statutory limits on maximum loan maturities for any covered loan durations, including those where the lender provides a deferral and extends the maturity of a covered loan during the 1-year period beginning with the date of enactment of this Act. 2. Extension. The Secretary shall, when necessary to provide more time because of the potential of higher volumes, travel restrictions, and the inability to access some properties during the COVID-19 pandemic, extend lender site visit requirements to a. not more than 60 days, which may be extended at the discretion of the Secretary, after the occurrence of an adverse event, other than a payment default, that causes a loan to be classified as in liquidation, and b. not more than 90 days after a payment default. D. Definition. In this section, the term covered loan means 1. A business and industry loan made or guaranteed before January 1, 2021, under subsection A or G of Section 310B of the Consolidated Farm and Rural Development Act, 7 U.S.C. 1932, A or G. 2. A loan that is made by an intermediary lender before January 1, 2021, to an ultimate recipient using a loan received under Section 1323 of the Food Security Act of 1985, 7 U.S.C. 1932 Note, Public Law 99-198, or Section 310H of the Consolidated Farm and Rural Development Act, 7 U.S.C. 1936b, and 3. A loan that is made by a microenterprise development organization before January 1, 2021, to a microentrepreneur under Section 379E of the Consolidated Farm and Rural Development Act, 7 U.S.C. 2008. Sec. 12004. Rural Energy Savings Program. A. Appropriation. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $200 million, to remain available until September 30, 2031, to carry out this section. B. Use of funds. 1. In general, except as provided in paragraph 2 of this subsection, at the election of an eligible entity to which a loan is made under Section 6407, c. of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. (8107A), c. The Secretary shall make a grant to the eligible entity in an amount equal to not more than 5% of the loan amount for the purposes of costs incurred in a. applying for a loan received under Section 6407(c) of such Act, b. making a loan under Section 6407(d) of such Act, c. making repairs to the property of a qualified consumer that facilitate the energy efficiency measures for the property financed through a loan under Section 6407(d) of such Act, d. entering into a contract under Section 6407(e) of such Act, or e. carrying out the duties of an eligible entity under Section 6407 of such Act. 2. Persistent poverty counties. In the case that the grant is for the purpose of making a loan under Section 6407(d) of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. 8107a, d, to a qualified consumer in a persistent poverty county, as determined by the Secretary, the percentage limitation in paragraph 1 of this subsection shall be 10%. C. Definitions in this section. 1. Eligible entity. The term eligible entity has the meaning given the term in Section 6407(b) of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. 8107a, b. 2. Qualified consumer. The term qualified consumer has the meaning given the term in Section 6407(b) of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. 8107a, b. Sec. 12005. Rural Energy for America Program. A. Appropriation. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, for eligible projects under the Rural Energy for America program established under Section 9007 of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. 8107, 1. $811,750,000 for fiscal year 2022, to remain available until September 30, 2031, and for which there may be no outlays after September 30, 2031. And 2. $272 million for each of fiscal years 2023 through 2027, to remain available until September 30, 2031, and for which there may be no outlays after September 30, 2031. B. Underutilized renewable energy technologies. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, to provide grants and other financial assistance under the program described in subsection A, relating to underutilized renewable energy technologies, and to provide technical assistance for applying to such program, as determined by the Secretary, and to the extent the following amounts remain available at the end of each fiscal year, the Secretary shall use such amounts in accordance with subsection A. 1. $143,250,000 for fiscal year 2022, to remain available until September 30, 2031, and for which there may be no outlays after September 30, 2031, and 2. $48 million for each of fiscal years 2023 through 2027, to remain available until September 30, 2031, and for which there may be no outlays after September 30, 2031. C. Non-federal share. Notwithstanding Section 9007, c. 3a, of the Farm Security and Rural Investment Act of 2002, 7 U.S.C. 8107, c. 3a, the amount of a grant provided using amounts made available by this section shall not exceed 50% of the cost of the activity carried out using the grant funds. Sec. 12006. Biofuel infrastructure and agriculture product market expansion. A. Appropriation. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $960 million, to remain available until September 30, 2031, to carry out this section. B. Use of funds. The Secretary shall use the amounts made available by subsection A to provide grants, on a competitive basis, to eligible entities described in subsection C(1) to install, retrofit, or otherwise upgrade fuel dispensers or pumps and related equipment, storage tank system components, and other infrastructure required at a location to ensure the environmentally safe availability of fuel-containing ethanol blends at levels greater than 10% as determined by the Secretary, or fuel-containing biodiesel blends at levels greater than 20% as determined by the Secretary, and 2. To build and retrofit distribution systems for ethanol blends, traditional and pipeline biodiesel terminal operations, including rail lines, and home heating oil distribution centers or equivalent entities, A. To blend biodiesel, and B. To carry ethanol and biodiesel. C. Eligible entities. Entities eligible to receive a grant under this section are transportation fueling facilities and distribution facilities, including fueling stations, convenience stores, hypermarket retailer fueling stations, fleet facilities, as well as fuel terminal operations, midstream partners, and heating O. Illinois distribution facilities or equivalent entities. D. Federal share. The federal share of the total cost of carrying out a project for which a grant is provided under this section shall be not more than 75%. E. Limitation. The Secretary may not limit the amount of funding an eligible entity may receive under this section. Sec. 12007. Clean energy repowering for rural utilities. A. Appropriation. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is appropriated to the Secretary for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $9.7 billion, to remain available until September 30, 2031, to provide to an eligible entity assistance under paragraphs 1 and 2, by prioritizing such assistance to eligible entities that will achieve the greatest reduction in greenhouse gas emissions using such assistance and that will otherwise aid disadvantaged communities, as determined by the Secretary, when 1. Making grants and loans, including the cost of loans and modifications thereof as defined in Section 502 of the